All right, well, we caught him in probably not 4K, but the camera is rolling. We're definitely recording.
That's why it's this one right here. Got him.
Wait, you're going to cut this part out, right?
Oh, I'm not including this. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mason.
And I'm his brother, Keith.
And welcome to the And His Brother podcast. Today we are joined by a very special friend of ours. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Nate, I guess.
This is Nate.
This is Dr. Nate Roper.
Soon to be.
I love that.
And today we're just going to kind of talk about a bunch of stuff, but we're going to try to touch on some emotional processing, just like attitude, perspective, things like that. So it might get tangential, but we'll just see. Stick around.
Stick around.
Stick around.
Oh, stick around, yeah.
All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. Loosely talking about, I guess, emotional processing, concepts of control, self-care, self-awareness. We'll start with, do you guys do anything for self-care? Very generic question, but whatever.
I take my antidepressant every day.
Fantastic. Do you really?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Cool. Mason?
That's what's up. I think
Nice haircut, by the way. I'm finally looking at it.
Hey, shout out to Jordy J.
Shout out to Jordy J.
Best barber in the game. I think self-care for me is like, which I've realized in the grand scheme of things is like maintaining my routines. I'm a very routine-oriented person, especially when life gets really busy. So just like really simple things. Like, I wash my face every morning and like make sure I like do skincare, self-care, but also like going to the gym, making sure I like get outside every day, because I know when I'm not doing those things, I don't feel very great. And learning that about myself allows me to build up a toolkit to be able to start to do those things for myself. So that's usually kind of what I do, just like going to the gym, making sure I get outside, just trying to take care of my body so that I can take care of my mind. Keith,
Mason.
what is self-care to you? How do you do it, if you do?
I have to. It's that or self-destruction. Self-care for me currently is pretty low-key, which is awesome. Similar things. The gym, I think, is my main routine. The other big one I have right now is like I refuse to work at home. Obviously, I'll like video edit or I'll like do like personal projects and stuff. I study stuff, but like I will not work unpaid currently. Which is like huge for teachers. Like teachers don't get to do that. I'm fortunate at the school I'm at. I think that's the big thing for self-care for me. I think the reason being, especially for the gym, like I think I texted you about this, about how I was like, it's one of the few places where I actually get to just go and release endorphins. Yeah. To the point where like I was almost embarrassed. I was like, dang, like some days I want to go back to the gym. And I'm like, but I'm kind of like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I can't be in the gym for 3-4 hours. I think part of that's like I'm getting older, my life is so routine or whatever, and it does feel good to release those endorphins. Also, my workouts are really sick right now. It's horrible.
What are endorphins, Keith?
Endorphins are these little messages in your brain that make you feel happy, essentially. I don't know how complicated you want to get.
It's a bit of an oversimplification, but...
I said I don't know how
so how would you
that's
say
the opposite of complicated.
I'd oversimplify it like he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can stimulate them through different activities and activity levels, and exercise is one of the things that has been shown to help release them. And I found exercise actually at specific like heart rate levels, but I found like for myself like it definitely works well and consistently. So even one thing I had to maintain, like especially when I get like the big SADs, is I have to make sure I'm working out. Like that's one of the quickest things that helps me, at least for moments, get like creepily out of it, you know, which is cool, I guess. I used to think it was kind of lame, but if it works, it works.
I feel like for me, one of the things that like came with like working out and like completing little small tasks throughout the day is like, even if I don't like have a great day at work, or I feel like I could have been more productive in other areas, even if I don't have a like fantastic gym session, I can be like, I went and like I got work.
Yeah,
and, like,
I got something done.
I took like a little step and like
tick off the list.
Yeah, like I feel like sometimes, especially as you grow up, you start to appreciate those a little more. Like, you know what? I got up today. I got out. 'Cause sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, I feel obligated to give a more serious answer now. I do take my antidepressant every day, which is part of my self-care.
No, that's legit.
But that's huge.
I used to.
Why'd you stop?
I outgrew them. I took a mood stabilizer, actually. and I wanted to try to see if I was pretty stable off of it after a while. So I was on it for a while, and I felt decent off. So it was one of those, like, I was still seeing Craig at the time. So I was like, let's see how I do while on therapy without it. And I was doing okay. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm good.
Okay. But I feel like my answer is like kind of similar to you guys. Like routines, as basic as it is, I feel like as humans we're creatures of habit, and when we develop good habits, like they can, it almost like simplifies your life a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, so that you don't have to stress so much about every little thing. And also what you said about just like doing something and just like being happy with the fact that, you know, you got out of bed or whatever it might be, you know, even if you have a crappy gym session, it's a gym session.
Yeah.
I relate to that a lot because I'm very much like an all or nothing type of person. So I can very much be of the perspective, like if I don't do this perfectly, then it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So just trying to force myself to be okay with, you know, maybe I can only put in 10% effort today, but it's better than 0. So
Yeah. Speaking on that, actually, because I've been working on a lot of like side pieces that I'll tell you guys about, maybe off camera, like a lot of side things. But one of the things that has been big is like, like I'll tell myself like I have to study like an hour and a half, like 3 days a week, and it's like if I don't have the time or I'm like just gassed, it's because I'm very like all or nothing. In my head I'm like, oh, I'm failing, I'm not hitting like what I meant. But it's like if I study for like 15 minutes of focus, it's still way better than if I just skip the whole week and then I'm like miserable and I hate myself later, you know?
Yeah.
For that at least. Yeah.
I felt like you had more to that thought.
I was trying to think if I did. No, I think that's kind of it. It's like, yeah, recognizing like if I do a little bit, it's still so much more significant than doing nothing. Because like you do nothing one day and then you're bummed out about it. So you might do nothing the other day because you're like, well, it's all wasted effort because I've been wasting. Like I've been skipping and skipping and skipping. Versus it's like, it's that quote, man, that Muhammad Ali quote that I come back to all the time, which I may have said in episode 1 or not at all. But it's like, it's the pebble in your shoe, and also, it's not the mountain that'll wear you out, it's the pebble in your shoe, right? It's like you need to focus on just like the little thing. If you can fix the little thing, everything else will kind of get handled.
It's a very good perspective to have.
Oh, what a transition.
Well, I was thinking about, when talking about perspective, I feel like all of us, when we were framing self-care, it was all, and at least talking about like what's worth it, like at least I did a little bit, I didn't have to do the whole thing. I feel like that's a good perspective to have because especially when you're young, I feel like, I'll speak for myself, I definitely fit that like stereotype and that cliche when you're young of like, you have all the time in the world, like you'll always have time to like do these things.
Yeah.
And in some sense it's true, like you don't have to feel like you need to accomplish everything when you're 16 years old. There is time, but I feel like once life starts coming at you and you start having more experiences, that's really what affects your perspective. And so what might have felt like success to you when you were younger may not feel like success when you're older. And so I know for me, like most kids, like I wanted to be like a professional athlete or like I wanted to be like a big time sportscaster because I was like, you don't have to do any real work. I found out you kind of do.
You gotta write and research and
I know. I was like, you have to be a really good writer to do this.
You just show up and talk.
I know, but you can only do that if you were in the league and then you're just like, I want to job.
Yeah, they're just like, here you go.
But if you're just going from wherever, they're like, you gotta write.
Cool.
You gotta write your own stories. But like thinking about like what success meant to me when I was a kid was like being like really famous, like being super well known, and those are still great like goals. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm still pursuing it. No, but like
Share with your friends. Like and comment.
Smash that like button. But yeah, I just feel like one example I'll give is like, so in high school, I feel like I was a decent high school football player. Yeah. And I was able to like, I kind of realized though going into like my junior and senior year, I was like, I'm not getting as much noise from like big time schools as I want. Like you know, by the time I was like a sophomore, junior, I was like, cool, Bama's probably not going to call me.
Right, because a lot of people getting signed over.
Yeah, but I was like, I could probably play at like, maybe like a UNLV, not to diss them, you're still a great D1 school, you're just not Alabama. You know that. But like to play at like a lower level D1 school. And then eventually I got to the point where I was like, cool, like I'm going the D2, D3 route. And I remember feeling like, dang, like that's not like what I wanted. That's not what I thought like success meant to me. And I felt like I just didn't feel great about it. I felt like I failed, but it was really great to have coaches and like parents and people around me that like gave me the perspective of like I don't even know the percentage. A very small percentage of people go from high school to playing college at any level in
Yeah.
any sport. And the fact that I still had schools that were interested in me and flying me out and like giving me visits, like paying for these visits at like the D3 and D2 level, like I was so like, oh, like I'm still doing this and still had a great time like playing, and like I got to play college football and tear my ACL and all those fun stuff. But I mean, anyway, but no, like just in terms of like perspective when it comes to success, I guess specifically, like I feel like that changes a lot as you get older. You realize what's important. I don't know if you guys have anything about like what perspective is for you, how that may have changed in another arena, in terms of success, in terms of relationships, in terms of yourself.
On a like similar vein to like what you said about the whole like, you know, wanting to go pro, or you know, go to a top tier D1 school and then you end up going the D2, D3 route. I've always wanted to be a doctor. It's been my dream since I was a little kid. And I became a paramedic in college, and I kind of saw that as like a very brief stepping stone on my journey to become a doctor. Like I've been a paramedic for like 1-2 years max. I've been a paramedic for 5 years now, and I'm like just starting to apply to medical school. So like, this is not the vision that I had for my life per se. And I see other people, you know, that I graduated with, like they're in their 3rd, 4th year of medical school, or they're finishing up these different degrees and they're on to where they want to be. And I'm very tempted to be like, compare myself to them and be like, you know, things aren't panning out the way that I planned them to be. But like you said, perspective. If I really look at things, like when I first like became a paramedic, like I was super happy just because I get to take care of people. And like, I may not be a doctor, but I'm getting some exposure to the medical field, like that I want. And I have a lot of autonomy, able to do a lot of things. And it's given me like all these like great life experiences and opportunities. So things have not necessarily panned out how I want them to, but I think if childhood Nate could see me now, he'd be like, oh yeah, you're not a doctor yet, but this is still like super cool, you know? So really cool. Even though it's not necessarily where I wanted to be at, you know, you frame things from a different perspective and you can appreciate the situation that you're in. I don't know if that's necessarily what we're talking about, but it's my 2 cents.
I think that's great, especially talking about, and Keith, I'm gonna let it get to you in a second. But that's probably a Kanye West moment. I'm gonna let you finish. But no, I think that like that's a huge thing. Like your childhood self, like looking back on like where you are, because I can remember feeling that at some points in my life and being like, bro, like you'd be mad disappointed. But I like look at where I am now and be like, I think it'd be all right. Maybe in 5 years I'll be like, nah, I'd still be disappointed. But we'll get there when we get there.
My childhood self, I think would think I'm a dork.
100%.
Yeah, my childhood self would be like, this guy's not cool. But I think my childhood self would trust me, which is huge because I didn't trust grown men as a child. Shout out Joey a little bit. Yeah, I think that's the perspective thing. Similar, right? Me and Nate went to a college together. That's how I know him. We're both members of like the same church is how we met. Neither of us is a member of that church. Neither of us is in college. When I was in college, I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to maybe do some research or go into like neurosurgery. And I did research as an undergrad, and I was like, this is miserable, and I hate it, and I'm stuck in a basement, and I don't ever want to do this again. So I didn't. Which kind of like left me in this weird, wonky, like, I knew I wanted to go into this since I was 14. And then at like 21, I was like, oh, no, I don't. So I just spent like 6.5, 7 years like pushing into one thing and then didn't want it anymore. So that left me in this kind of like weird space, I guess. So the perspective, right, what I thought was success or what I think is now. No, we'll just go perspective, not success yet. Is I think I have reevaluated what is important to me. I know part of why I wanted to go into it was I did want to help people. I was like, I felt like I was a smart kid. I was like, maybe I can make some kind of difference. Part of what I didn't like about research is it's a lot of like crossing things off the list, not like finding things that work. It's just like, oh, this didn't work. Another year of research. That also doesn't work. And I was just like, I can't do, like, there's people who do this their whole lives just to find what doesn't work. And I was like, that's not helping people. And it does in the grand scheme of things. But like, I didn't feel like I would feel rewarded. Whereas like now I still have that like desire to like help people. And I feel like, at least with where I'm at, like as a teacher, like the kinds of conversations I'm able to have, the presence I'm allowed to have with like family, I think I'm able to make a more immediate difference. And I'm big on immediate gratification. Immediate gratification. We're going to edit something up there. Nate doesn't know how this works.
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
Can we get that? Instant gratification about my...
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Which is basically gratified, right? Receiving what you want immediately or instantly, right away, as opposed to like when you go to school, right? It's not instant gratification. Minimum 4 years. You have to wait out before you can get the thing you want. Versus like if you get $20 and you just go buy something. So yeah, I think my perspective has changed a lot in like how I can contribute to the world, what I can contribute to the world. I think what is success has changed for me. Now we'll go into that.
Yeah.
Because I think I used to definitely like a doctor and like this, and I want to make this much money. And I'm not opposed to making money. But I just don't. I'm like not motivated by it. Like,
Yeah.
I've made more money in other jobs. I'm just like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But I think having the time to like be around family, the freedom and like me and Nate have gone on like a couple like summer trips because I have summers off right now. And I might not always be a teacher. I won't always be a teacher. I refuse. But
Let's make that clear.
This is not a diss to teachers.
it's not a diss to teachers.
love
It's
teachers.
definitely not a diss to my students. But yeah, I think I've appreciated like the freedom and like I think my time a lot more. Like if I want to spend more time on the gym, if I want to spend more time in like this garden, I got like a couple pets, like just the time to like do whatever, hang out. Like I'm gonna see Zave this week, might see Hank this week. Like I have just time. And I think as I've gotten older, it's become a lot less of a money pursuit. Like a lot of people in my world in corporate America are like heavy money pursuers, but there's not a lot of time freedom that comes with that. There's a lot of financial freedom that I might not have. But I think part of what my perspective has changed is like what I prioritize as far as that kind of stuff goes. And right now, at least, it's time. But I think that's how, like, I've redefined success a little bit. I think reading some of the books I've read. Atul Gawande, I forgot the title, but it's, Being Mortal.
Oh, he's got a few books.
Being Mortal changed my entire perspective on what I want to do with my day-to-day time. Which is crazy, because I'm very stubborn.
Ain't that right?
Ain't that?
You know what's actually really interesting about perspective? Something that I thought a lot about in the past like couple of years was like legacy. Thanks to Hamilton.
Wow. I still want a building named after me.
I want a complex named after our family.
That
You can have a building within the complex.
All very ambitious goals.
like if we have like a stadium.
Facts.
It's like, yeah, welcome to Thomas Stadium. This is Keith Field.
Who would want to play on?
I was thinking of
No,
naming
that's a
like,
pretty lame name.
I was thinking of naming like the locker room after you or something.
That's fine.
The visitors locker room.
If you guys go to Balboa Park or Northridge Park, never gonna forget this, man. This is the only legacy I currently have. All right, there's a banner up in either of them, different years, for when I was an All-Star and one All-City or something like that. That's my name on it. Flag football. When I was like,
Literally 20 years ago.
oh my gosh, I'm so old. I was like, 10 years ago. No, yeah, it's
20 years ago, Keith isn't that old. I'm like, wait.
Yeah, yeah. I was probably like 8 and 10 or something. Yeah, about 20 years ago.
No.
But it's the only legacy I currently have,
Yeah.
so we're not letting it die.
But I'm thinking about like the idea of one of the things like that Hamilton says in there, and I don't know if it's like his words or like it could have been like quoted from something.
Yeah.
It was like,
I'm not throwing away my shot.
yes, but and that's important.
It's quiet up.
But legacy is planting a seed in a garden you'll never get to see. It was such a good bar.
Wow.
And it was also like very good perspective because it's like in terms of the like instant gratification. Point to it, Nate.
Oh.
Instant gratification.
I have to leave it up so long now.
You just put it back.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I was always like, oh, I want to see like the fruits of my labor like now. Like
Yeah.
I want to see like my impact right now. And what's especially hard, I think, too, working in a space like working with kids is you don't always get to do that. And I know that from personal experience because I've had coaches where I'm like, that stuff was kind of lame, and like here I am years later, and I'm like quoting stuff, and I'm like, as a coach myself, like I'm like,
I hate it,
man, like I'm saying all this stuff they were kind of spitting back then,
Yeah.
and they don't know that, like they don't know that like the seeds they planted are like growing in me, and like same things with like people from our church, and like I look back and like sometimes I can be like, man, like I didn't have a great experience in like this or this, and like you know sometimes the negative things are easier to see, But then I like find things like in my life and like how I carry myself or like things that I believe in. I'm like, oh man, like I guess that was something like really cool that I picked up.
Yeah.
And so, but that can be scary, like investing in something and not knowing what's going to come out of it. And I think just trying to like trust yourself and put in honest work and know that things you're saying, the things you're living by, when you are in some kind of leadership role, whether it's like just your kids or like other members of your family, or it's like an entire nation, whatever scale it is, like it can be scary to try to trust yourself in that way, to be able to lead and grow and all those things.
Yeah.
That was just what I thought about in terms of that. But
No, I agree. I think it's also important to a younger audience of like, being willing to invest without seeing.
yeah,
I think, if you're 12 watching, whatever you're investing in, you'll probably see the fruits of. If it's like school, you're going to see your grade. Like, you'll be around for it for the most part. But understanding, I guess, that it is an investment, it is something that takes time, right? I think one thing that I regret from when I was younger, actually, is I, like, didn't invest in things a lot. Like, didn't study in elementary school, obviously, because I don't think people do that.
Who studies in
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But, like, in middle school, like, there's definitely times I could have got better grades in some classes. High school, like, same kind of thing. And then I got to college, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to study. 'Cause I didn't, like, have to.
That happened to me for sure.
Yeah, and, there's classes I'm getting a B here, a C there, and I'm like, all right, it's a pass, like, whatever. So I want to encourage you guys, if there is something you even, like, remotely care about, if you don't plan on going to college, whatever, right? But I think even the skill of being able to study and advance yourself is important. And that's one of my bigger regrets, is not realizing how it translates to other things, right?
Yeah.
Like, as an adult, essentially, I had to teach myself how to read quicker, because it's like there's books I want to read, there's concepts I want to know.
I thought you were gonna say just
No, I knew how to read, but like legit, I was like in my 20s when I was like, oh, I don't speak super well. I've talked about this before. I don't like how I speak, and I don't read quick. Like, it took me a few minutes per page. So like, even if I wanted to like get, you can say,
Are you sure you know how to read?
How long you spend on each word?
I can see it in his eyes.
It's like swinging. He's like, let me say it, please, bro.
What does that say? But it's because I didn't develop the skills young enough, because they weren't like, I didn't see them as necessary. And I say this mostly from like the student body I work with particularly, is like most of them, all of you guys kind of know how to read, but I think there's a lack of a willingness to invest in a skill set without immediate reward. So I think, like I've had students be like, oh, like reading is boring, which like it can be. But one thing like a lot of people don't invest in is like finding books they might be interested in.
Yeah.
It's like, like I read, 2 books in high school, and I, outside of college, read like a book a month. Like, it just took me finding what I liked. But I feel like some of the skills and stuff I've developed are so late.
Yeah.
Not to do what I want to do, but they can be for people who want to do other things. So I would say, in the terms of like, if you're to take anything from our perspective, I would say, or from my perspective, learn how to invest, even if the thought is so that you can invest better later. Maybe it's financially, maybe it's whatever,
Yeah.
But if the first time you're ever investing in something is when you're like 20, you can figure it out, but it'd be a lot cooler if that was like your 8th year learning how to invest in something.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing I'm trying to instill in my kids, in my middle schoolers, in terms of like, they talk a lot, like we show them a lot of like game film of like college, like lacrosse players, and lacrosse is a sport that is heavily dominated like on the East Coast, and it's definitely a sport you kind of need like money to do. But if you want to play at the collegiate level, you're probably gonna need to get a scholarship. Probably need to get a scholarship of some kind.
Yeah.
For the most, at the D1
most
level.
schools, yeah.
At the D1 level. And a lot of people don't, especially in like the middle school level where I'm at, like they don't know what that entails. And I'm like, hey,
Road grades are huge.
yeah, I'm like, especially in a sport like that, I'm like, where like half the schools are Ivy Leagues, I'm like, you have to be able to get good grades.
Something I figured out after getting into a college, every high school A, more or less, it's not direct, translates to about $1,000.
Yeah.
And when I like realized that, like if you got all straight A's your entire year of high school, you're probably going to college for free.
Yeah.
As a minority at least. And I was like, when I realized that, I was like, man, those B's and C's are very expensive. So if that's, do that.
How do you feel about investing?
I'm not very good at it.
Tell us about your.
I've lost a lot of money in crypto.
What are those little picture
NFTs.
things called? Tell me about your NFT.
I bought an NFT. I have a Dizzy Dragon if anybody wants to buy it for 0.14 ETH or anything above that. No, it's worthless now.
I remember you bought it and you were like, how much would you spend on this? It was like $3. You were like, I spent like $200 or whatever.
It was like 600 at the time, but we don't need to talk about that. That's not what this podcast is about.
It is. It's about lessons we learned.
So what have you learned from that core investment?
Honestly, this does bring up a very good point.
Tell me.
As far as investment goes, if there's something that you're serious about, whether it be sports, whether it be investing in crypto, whether it be learning languages, you got to figure out the process behind these things and like get serious about
That's real.
having some sort of like framework like that you can
Like a
educate
plan,
yourself
kind of?
and framework and a plan that you have. Because with crypto, I joke about it, but I got into it like, oh, this crypto stuff, I'm gonna make some money. I got into it, had a lot of education I could have took advantage of, decided, nah, I'm gonna like look at a little bit of the education and then I'm just gonna start throwing my money around. Which is why I paid $600 for a picture of a blue dragon in a lab coat. So don't do that, kids. Learn from my mistakes. Be better than me. But also when you were talking about just not knowing how to study, not knowing how to read. No, but
I can read. I read good, man.
You sure you haven't just memorized a bunch of words?
Stop. When I heard that quote on like New Girl, I'm not convinced I can read. I'm just convinced I've memorized a bunch of words.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds
That's
like.
all reading is. That's what reading is.
That's what language is.
Oh yeah, it is. Memorize all the words that you possibly can, so that you can be better at reading than Keith was when he got to college.
Correct.
This is true. But you brought up the point about like people not investing, energy. Like they might not like reading.
Yeah.
But they want to invest the time and the energy into like saying like, oh wait, maybe there are things out there that I would like to read.
Yeah.
When I got to college, studying had never really been a thing for me, like in high school. Definitely not on the degree that like I had to in college.
Yeah.
And it was really hard for me to study for these classes that I like did not have any interest in. I was just taking them because they're boxes that I have to tick off if I want to become a doctor, right? But when I actually like got into doing like my paramedic coursework, and it was the stuff that I like actually had wanted to learn all along. When I tell you like everybody else hated that year. Well, I don't know about everybody else, but a lot of my classmates, they really did not enjoy that year. It was very difficult, but quite honestly, I had fun. It was a lot of information that I had to take in and stuff like that, but it was what I actually wanted to know.
Yeah.
So it was a lot easier to immerse myself in that material.
Absolutely.
Just because it was something I'm actually interested in. So maybe you're not interested in anything your teachers are talking about. You can just go out and educate yourself. Yeah, and not the kids in Keith's class. Just kidding. You're probably very uninterested.
How dare you?
But you can just go out and educate yourself on whatever it is that you want to know about. If you like Civil War, history, battle reenactments, you can gain knowledge on whatever,
Yeah. And I do think that's big. I have a lot of students who have like various, like I know they're like, I don't need to know this because, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, there's a lot of validity. That's how I felt in high school. So I was like, what do I need to pay attention for U.S. government? I want to be a doctor. This isn't going to matter. And it doesn't right now, like to my career.
You should know a little bit about the government.
I know a lot about the government. I don't even know so many conspiracies. But that's required me to look stuff up.
That episode's gonna come, don't worry.
That is an episode. I wish we were joking. But I think like when you were talking about developing a framework and like investing in the things you do care about, like I have students who like want to be barbers. I have students who want to work on cars. I have students, right? And like, even if you don't read, like reality is reading is not the medium a lot of things are being transmitted through anymore. But there's so many videos, there's so many resources, probably to the point of like overwhelm. Like it probably feels like too many.
Yeah.
But like, I would implore you, if you have any like faint interest, or if you know what you want to do, if your dad, like, I have a student whose dad runs like a horticulture service or whatever. It's like that he knows he inherit like this. It was a student that graduated last year, but he knows he's inheriting it. He's like, I literally do not need school. There's a business I receive when I turn like 20.
What is horticulture, Keith?
horticulture, like I was gonna say like agriculture. Think plants and gardening, essentially. Oversimplification.
Okay.
Yeah.
But being willing to, like I try to encourage him and like other students, all right, learn how to run a business. Like what does that look like? What is the framework? Can you expand? Do you intend to expand? Do you want it to be able to do other things? Are you like, what does it look like? If you want to be a barber, literally just watching videos of how to. I think a lot of people are like, let me just go practice and try to do the really, really, really cool thing. And like the minutia or like the very simple basics. Like if you look at any pro athlete, their ability to perform the basics is what makes them the pro athlete.
Fundamentals, yeah.
Right? And they're able to do the fundamentals so well that they can turn it into other things, but like they have mastered. Like Larry Bird, Hall of Famer, like if you watch him play, it's like he looks lame, but it's like he's so consistently clean with all of it. So like I think, but yeah, being willing to do like the little things, which is the research, the investment, developing a framework. If I want to be a barber, okay, how much does a barber make? How much do I want to make? What does that look like? Do I open up my own shop? Do you know what opening up a shop entails? Do you work at another shop, right?
I was going to say, people forget about that, specifically for being a barber, but I'm sure a bunch of other professions. Like, cool, I want to get really good at this one skill, and like make a bunch of money. It's like, do you know how to market? Do you know how to like set up like a payment system? Do you know how to run a business? Do you know how to like expand or like
it's
where
people
your
just
gaps
don't.
are?
Yeah, so look at find a successful example, you know, but figure out how to invest in the thing you do care about, right? And it's fun. Like it's really fun. I remember like an example for me that was like a blast was like I had worked on a lacrosse move in a high school that I had never seen before, but I was like, you know what? I think based on how people run, this could work. And it was like you wind up a shot. It's basically a spin move, but I let go of my stick mid-move so that their full weight is coming at me. And essentially like I slide, let go, hold on with one hand and like flip it. And I was like, I think this could work. And I practiced in the backyard hundreds of times. Because it also takes, the dude has to be running straight at you. If he's coming at an angle, it doesn't, like it's very circumstantially specific. And then I remember I did it in a game, completely botched the shot, but the dude flew by me. And I remember just being like, okay, wait, like I can use this. And I didn't, because that any good defender doesn't run at you like that. But I wasn't playing against good defenders at the time, so I didn't know that. But like, yeah, just mastering the minutia. The other thing that like, I had one dodge in high school that got me to be a starter in college. One dodge, but I was so clean at it because I'd practiced it 200 times a day. Not an exaggeration, 100 each way.
Split?
A very specific Kyle Harrison split because he had two main ones that were his go-tos.
Shout out Kyle Harrison.
Shout out Kyle Harrison.
Don't know who that is, but
He's a ex-pro lacrosse player. Going to be for sure a Hall of Famer. But yeah, I was like, if it's the same thing. If you can master one thing, so even with whatever you're interested in, learn how to figure out how to get good at it. For this dodge specifically, it wasn't, can I have the craziest shot? Can I have the this? It was that. It was, what are his feet doing? And I looked toe, step. Toe, step. Then I'll just do that without my stick. Toe, step. So it's learn how to break down the point. I really have been talking for forever. Break down the thing you actually want to do and learn how to do the steps to get there is what I would say.
Yeah, because it's not enough to, well, it's great to have an idea, like I want to do this, or I want to be this, or I want to, whatever.
Yeah.
It's great to have a specific goal. That's a starting point, but you really got to...
See video 3, or whatever video that was.
Yeah,
we talked about
video 3 or whatever video it was. But you really got to break it down into like all of those parts.
Yeah.
Because if you just kind of have a general idea, maybe you'll get to your goal, but it's going to take a lot longer time than if you had, all right, I know that this is step 1, this is step 2, all the way out to step 15 or step 20. And it can be a little overwhelming, so you don't have to do that all at once. But you figure those things out so that you can have that plan, that framework. And yeah, my life is a perfect example of that because I just had the thought, I'm going to be a doctor. And I just kind of looked like generally, okay, this is kind of what I need to do, but I didn't really break it down into all its component parts. And I'm learning that the process is a lot more detailed and intricate and harder than I initially thought it was. We're getting there, but I could have saved myself a lot of trouble if I had done things that Keith is saying and broken these things down. So
yeah. And we'd all be in different places. I wouldn't have learned all these things if I just got all the things I wanted.
Fair. So learn from our
About
mistakes
6-2.
It's true.
and our successes.
One thing that I wanted to talk about that I forgot when we were talking about self-care is I forgot again. No, it's affirmations.
Sorry.
Affirmations. Didn't want to talk about it.
That's it. Affirmation.
Affirmations. So what affirmations are is you are affirming or convincing yourself again of beliefs. Okay. Of beliefs or concepts, right? And I remember when I was like younger, right? This is part of like self-care. I don't do it as much anymore. But like when I was younger, like I had tons of like negative thoughts about myself, like horrible, like how I felt about myself, how I viewed myself, whatever. And I remember at some point in adulthood, someone was like, you should try affirmations. And it's like, I am worthy of love, or I am important, right? There's all kinds. And I remember reading these being like, these are stupid, and I don't believe them. But what I found was effective. I was not thrilled that affirmations work because I always felt like it was just you talking in a mirror and it's kind of like dorky and whatever. And then they started working and I was like, oh, this is the worst. Like, I hate when they're right.
You start believing your own lies.
Yeah, exactly. I gaslit myself.
It's self-manipulation.
It is a little bit
It's
though.
literally.
There is research that proves that if the things we think about tend to manifest in our beliefs. But the affirmations that did work for me, and this is usually what I encouraged in people, especially people who are hesitant to say things like that, like just like, people love me. Like you, I don't know your situation. I'm sure some people love you, most of you.
We love you.
But you also might be in a super isolated situation. There were times when I was, and I was like, there's no one around to love me. I know that you guys love me or whatever, but there was definitely times where I was not answering phones or texts or whatever for months at a time.
I was oblivious.
We love you, Keith.
Okay. Not you too, Sean. It's not your fault. That's a good Will Hunting reference. But the affirmations that I found worked were just things that I truly believed. Believed could be true. So like one of my main ones was like, I can be a better person than I am. And that's like, you know, some people have like these great, like, I'm powerful, confident, like that's some people's, and if that works for you, awesome. I didn't always feel like that, but me thinking I can be a better person. I can be a better person. I can be a better person over and over and over for days and days and days at a time and months at a time. You start to believe it. And it's like, okay, like I've seen like when I'm thinking about being a better person, I can behave a little bit differently, more self-controlled, more empathetic, consider other people. Like, and so that started to manifest into actual behaviors, which led to me feeling like I might be a better person, thus proving the affirmation. So if you guys are ever like, I don't know where to start, I have poor self-view, I would start with some kind of affirmation that you can believe to be true. Because if you start with something super grandiose that you don't believe, like I could be president one day and you just don't believe it, it's like it's not gonna work. If you're like, I could be president one day, and then you leave the mirror and you're like, whatever. But they were like, I know that was like one of the main ones. I don't remember. There was like 3 on my mirror for too long.
I think I remember this.
Yeah, it was my apartment on Addison.
Yeah, I was like, why do you have stuff written on your mirror? Are you crazy or something?
Yep.
But he was affirming himself.
I was. And yeah, but they weren't like super positive. They were just things I believe, which is why it looks crazy. I can be a better person. Noted. Okay.
Yeah, on that same vein, I've always thought affirmations very cheesy, corny, cliche. But I know for me, I feel like it's kind of just about being nicer to yourself.
Oh my God, yeah.
Which is like sounds kind of dumb.
I don't do that.
To me, it does. What's that?
I said I don't do that. I think I just believed some of the things. I don't know if I'm nicer to myself.
Interesting.
I don't think I'm mean to myself anymore.
I think
I guess that's nicer.
Mine was. I think mine was more. Mine was more about like
be in the
respect
mirror
for
at the gym
myself.
anymore.
When it came to like taking care of myself, like taking care of my body, taking care of my relationships, and being like, what do I
Respecting
deserve
your
in
own
relationships?
time,
It's
showing
like,
up on time, the time you agreed to show up and stuff.
whose house are we in?
Respect
nothing wrong.
other people's time.
And I do value that greatly.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't help.
It's not. It's not
Self-respect. Self-respect.
But no, but that was a huge thing for me, and I've touched on that in other podcasts. Where like I'm a people pleaser at heart, and I feel like a lot of that came from like Like people would be like, you should like want more for yourself, and I was like I think deep down I was like, oh, I don't deserve that.
Yeah.
And I think that was like it wasn't like that I didn't like myself. I just felt like there were times I just didn't respect who I was.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was more about, and I feel like, you know, in a way that's being kinder to myself, but like giving myself the same respect that I know I give other people. Setting aside, you know, even just small things like if I say I'm going to do something, like if it was something for someone else, I'd be like, of course I'd do it because it's a person right there. But if it's for me, I'll be like, like
you don't need to
whatever.
do that.
Like I don't need to do that. But it's like, no, like I said I was going to do this for me, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's my version of that, like being kinder to yourself with like affirmations.
No, that's also, dude, I think the deserving thing is definitely something I related to. I think for me it was much more upfront. Like it didn't come in people pleasing. It just came in, I just don't deserve things.
Yeah.
It's like when people would try to help, when people try to like buy my meals, buy me birthday gifts, like all, like, and I mean like talking like 11 and up. Like I'd be like, I don't need it, I'm good. Like did it because I was like, they're either faking it or I just know I don't deserve it, so I'm just a burden, right?
Yeah.
Some deep thoughts for an 11-year-old.
Dude, you were like a 40-year-old.
You should have, yeah. I used to write some stuff down, and like I found some of the stuff I wrote when I was like 14, 15. I'm like, cut my life into pieces.
It's not a phase, Mom.
It's not a pre-phase.
But like that's how that legit was like when I like came to consciousness around 11. That's where it was operating. And it really like frustrated a lot of adults because like I'd talk to adults and I would like outsmart some of them, which when I'm in the negative space would reaffirm that I was right. Because it's like, oh, I'm having talks with like teachers or people at church and they're not able to combat my thoughts. I must be right when you're 11, 12, 13. So then by the time I'm 14, 15, 16, I'm like believing I'm right for 5 years.
This explains a lot about you.
Yeah.
There was always like an energy around you around that time.
Yeah, deep, dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should look. If you look at any pictures from like middle school to high school, there's not a smile.
Yeah. She's just like this.
Straight up, yeah. There's somewhere I look like I'm a freaking like demented kid in a horror movie in the background.
Yeah.
But the point being, yeah, learning like my worth, I think took like active practice before I fully believed it. But it was the same kind of thing as like, oh, like when I picked you up from the airport today, right? Not a burden. I don't think about it that way. Yeah, no problem. But like I don't think about it that much. It's not that big a deal. Like it legit like was just like, oh yeah, Nate's in town, I'll go pick him up. But then like if you were to offer, this didn't happen because by the time like we met, I was like past a lot of the stuff. But like if you were to offer when I was younger, I'd be like, no, I can't take that time out of your day and I'll figure it out and I'll Uber and I'll go into debt if I have to, and like just like so not
I
sane.
get that though.
But it's
Yeah, I get that though.
Like even like yeah. Like there were times mom and dad would ask like if I needed money when my account was like in the negatives. There was a couple of weeks where I survived off of like $18, I think. And I mean 2 full weeks. And it's like, could I have texted mom and dad for like a meal? Obviously. Right? But I was just like, I don't deserve it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't set myself up well enough and whatever. And then just like, but like actively thinking like, all right, like if I don't care about picking Nate up and it's not that big a deal, Nate will probably feel about the same way as long as it didn't like cut into his skin. And then it was like, okay, so I can ask. And if he says no, he says no. And then like I would ask a friend for that one thing.
Don't. It's a huge
whatever. But then I would ask for like the thing that like meant nothing to me from other people, and they'd be like, oh yeah, for sure. I'd be like, oh okay. And then you do it once or twice. So sometimes it's doing things you don't fully believe, but like practicing, I guess. Is that what you found it was for you with like your thoughts of worth?
Yes, I think to an extent that's where a lot of it came from. I think part of it too was like understanding that the things that I enjoyed to do for other people, like other people also enjoyed doing for me. I actually learned that explicitly from Wendy, who used to live across the street from us.
Shout out Wendy.
Shout out Wendy.
The whole government out there is crazy. But
My fault.
let's bleep out that last name.
Shout out
Wendy.
to Wendy.
Yeah, there we go. What's the whitest thing you guys do? I told Keith this a while back. You refer to people by their full government names, like first and last.
Shout out to Eli and Bella.
Shout out Eli and Bella.
Single fatherhood.
Shut up.
Wow.
Haters.
That was a dog. And Eli, never mind.
Is a man. Eli's my
Yes, okay.
Eli's my dog.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Shout out Eli. You like that candle?
That's
Talking about Wendy.
Yeah. So sorry. One of the good lessons that I learned from Wendy, I guess indirectly from Dad, but it was Wendy, is sorry. From Miss Wendy. One of the things I learned from Miss Wendy was this is our neighbor from across the street, and sometimes like they would pick,
street you live on too.
Her address was.
that's relevant. That's relevant to the story. Like sometimes our dad would like, and she had like 2 sons that were me and Keith's age, and sometimes like he would pick us up. He would pick all 4 of us up, and sometimes she would pick us up, and we lived across the street from each other, so it was really cool. And this one time, like my dad had picked up like her kids like just with us, and it wasn't like really out of his way or anything, but she was like, oh, like here's like $20 for gas, and our dad was like, no, like I would do this anyway, like that's
Neighbors,
just
we're in the same
whatever.
financial
Yeah, he's
bracket.
like, yeah, he's like we're good, like this is fine. And they like kind of went back and forth. She's like, no, like I insist, and she finally was like let me like do this for you, like this helps me to feel like I'm like really showing you this like gratification. So like even though my dad was like, I don't need this, he was like, this is something I need to do so like she can feel better. Like he's like, I have that like kind of love for her, like I'm willing to do that for her.
I will take money from any of you.
Same.
But it was that sentiment of like those are the kind of things that I know like I need sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I would do like, oh man, like here's gas money, blah blah blah, and I would like hope that like my friends would take it, or like if they like paid for something, I'd be like, yeah, like here.
Yeah.
I'd want to return the favor, but I know I would never accept that. I'd be like, nah,
Yeah.
dude, like I did this for you, but like sometimes it's like being able to just be like, you know what, thank you.
Yeah.
Like shout out to you for that. Like I appreciate that. Like letting other people have that same feeling as well.
Yeah.
And not in like, it sounds weird because like, but like not like in a transactional way, like all these relationships are transactional.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Because
saying?
it's not necessarily
It wasn't the amount.
financial. Sometimes, yeah.
But it was just being able to like show gratitude for like this favor, like this thing you did.
Yeah.
So that was another thing for me when like learning about like, just kind of how I'm wired in that way, and like,
Yeah.
It's interesting. We all have these different perspectives on like affirmations and like kind of being nicer to ourselves, even though you said you weren't nicer to yourself, but you described being nicer to
And then I
yourself.
realized, yeah.
I know for me, my thing was I was in a very rough spot at the beginning of this year mentally, and I have a tendency to only focus on like negative things about myself, my character, and like you were saying earlier, just being very mean to myself, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I forced myself, I don't know where I got the idea from, but I forced myself to just acknowledge like one good thing about myself, or something that I did, or something in my life circumstances, like one good thing a day. And it like got me to a point where I was able to like start affirming myself, because if it was like I acknowledge something like consistently, like over a period of like weeks or whatever, then it's like, oh wait, I've grown as a person in this particular area. Like and then that kind of becomes like, oh wait, I'm a more patient person now.
Yeah.
And man, it was rough at the start. I was like, there'd be some days where I'm like, is there anything good about my life right now? And that's an over-exaggeration. I'm alive. I have clothes on. I live in America. Like, there's all these great things that are going on in my life. But you can get so caught up and wrapped up in, like, all the negative stuff that it's very hard to acknowledge those positive things. So, for me, just making the conscious effort to do that, it really helped me change my headspace and just honestly be nicer to myself, which, like, to me, like, sounds kind of corny and, like, cliche or whatever, but it's real. But I like that we all have like different ways of doing it, because it shows that there's no one right way to do it.
Yeah.
There's, what works for you works for you.
Absolutely.
And that it takes practice. Like it took years and years and years and years. I think for all of us, like I'd argue, like we're all still working on it.
Absolutely.
I don't want to speak for y'all.
I am at peace.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
But
So
I like that
that's
too,
right.
because that's like a very like practical little thing. Like
Yeah.
you do all those things. Like I'm just gonna keep saying this to myself, and even if you're not sure like where to start, like how should I start affirming myself? Even if it's just like, what's one good thing I did today? What's one cool thing that like I appreciate? I know that's a very big thing, in like Christianity, is like writing down like thing of gratitude and like writing like gratitude list.
Or in
and
general,
things like
yeah.
that. Yeah, in general, especially. But
I struggle with gratitude lists, I'll be real.
yeah.
I think I'm not historically a grateful person. Is part of why. I think it was paired with the not deserving and stuff. But yeah, so I would try to write gratitude lists, and I could write things that like I knew were good, like, but I wasn't actively grateful for them, which made like connecting to that's why that's not my go-to.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't connect to it. As I'd be like, I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for the breath in my lungs, and I'll just like write stuff, but it's like I wasn't like. There were times I didn't want to be around. There were times I didn't want to be around mom. There's just a lot where I'm like, this isn't true that I'm grateful for. It's like things I should be grateful for, and then I'd almost start like this negative thought of like, I should be grateful. I'm ungrateful. I'm a bad person. And it was like, whoa. So I don't do gratitude lists.
Find what works for you.
The point, but yeah, find what works for you. What allows you to feel kind of like Nate said, at peace. I think
that's I'd argue in some sense I'm not a psychologist, but as someone who studies psychology.
you worked on papers.
I wrote some stuff.
Yeah, I worked at a lab. I can say I'm a scientist.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I would just say, like, I think that is something that is deep in a lot of people. Is like a lot of people are searching for peace. I think in one way or another. I would argue that that everyone's searching for peace in one way or another, whether it's through their job or through their relationships or through themselves, whether
Self-medication.
whether it's like, in whatever arena it is, I think peace is ultimately what people are after, and that's something I try to talk about with my kids too. Is like emotions come and go, like happy, like the highs, the lows, happiness, sadness, anger. Those things can stick around for a super long time. They can be around for a while, but I think ultimately emotions can ebb and flow, and there are times where you can be happy and be at peace, and there's times I think you can be down and you can still be kind of at peace, and you can be like, you can acknowledge like I'm not in a great spot right now, but I'm all right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's always easy to see. I've been in times where I'm like, I can't see the peace. Like, I don't know where it is. Like, like that. I won't say that, like, that doesn't happen. I'm like, if you're not feeling that at all times, you're not real. But, like, I do think that's something that a lot of people, if not everyone, is seeking in some form or another, is being able to rest your head on your pillow and be like, it's all right.
Yeah. This is, like, kind of, like, maybe off on a tangent to that, but, like, just listening to you talk about that got me thinking. When I was growing up, nobody told me, like, you have to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
And that is a continual process that it's just, like, it never stops.
Yeah.
Like, you just explore deeper layers, and life circumstances change, you change, and it's just a cycle, like, over and over. And yeah, it's hard.
It is.
And, like, I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but, like, no adults in my life, like, told me, like, oh, yeah, like, you're going to have to, like, explore your mind and, like, figure out what works for you. I mean, we just talked about all the different ways that we simply tried to be nicer to ourselves, which seems like such a simple thing. And, I feel like should just be, like, second nature, but it's not, you know? So, yeah, that just got me thinking about that. Like, I feel like nobody talks about that, really.
Yeah, is that right?
I don't think when I was a kid, adults were like, I knew like adults who were Christians who were trying to be better, but not who were like actively getting to know their habits, their like vices, their like, it wasn't as like frontal, like they weren't as aware, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, I could be better, and that's kind of where it stopped.
Exactly.
Like, so I'm not good enough. Got it. That was how I ingested it.
Yeah.
You know?
And it takes time and intention, and yeah, it's not always easy. Actually, it's not easy. Period. It's hard.
But to answer your question, Mason,
Yes.
I would 100% say it's worth it. Even just the example that I referenced earlier about just like, it was like a period of probably like 4 or so months. There was like a really rough time for me, and I just focused on doing that one thing every day and was very intentional about it. And when I tell you like my growth as a person, like in just that like 4-month span, from just like acknowledging my own efforts or my life situations or whatever it might have been that I decided to focus on that day that was positive, it helped my mental state so much. It got me, one, out of a really bad mental place, but also two, like helped me not just get back to baseline, it helped me to get to a really good mental space where I could develop like healthier habits and be able to do a lot of the things that I want to and just like focus on pursuing my goals instead of just like being depressed and like down on myself and, you know, feeling like I'm worthless or whatever I'm feeling at the time, you know? So getting to know yourself is crucial, necessary, and I think a lot of people are very unhappy because they don't know themselves. That's my kind of 2 cents. I mean, there's other reasons why people can be unhappy, of course, but I feel like if you really know yourself, why is Keith standing up?
Honestly, it didn't look like I was recording.
You just killed the vibe, bro.
You'll be all right.
Vibe killer.
I'm making sure it's recording. You were saying good stuff.
You can't see the red dot?
I'm not
The red dot's always there.
Oh.
In the last 30 seconds, it blinks is what I think happened. So it wasn't blinking, but I didn't realize it was only at the end.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, it's not blinking.
Oh,
I'll make
that's
sure it's recording.
I'm not gonna lie, I lost my train of thought. I don't feel like talking anymore.
Cool.
Cut to Mason.
So,
Cut to Keith.
that's all I got.
Yeah, we can end there. We lost our train of thought, and I'm probably gonna cut none of this out. Because who cares? It happens. Thank y'all for joining us. Yeah, if you guys can take away a singular practical, I think it's find what you think is worth investing in, and you are worth investing in. And is that a singular practical? Depends on how you look at it. Perspective.
And that's all, folks.
That's all. Yeah, I think you are worth investing in. It's not always going to be immediate. Nate talked about 4 months. I had to go to therapy forever.
Should probably go back. TMI? Sorry, kids.
I feel like I'm in an alright place. We'll see.
Me and Uncle Keith are having a sidebar conversation.
We'll talk about it later. But yeah, figure out what works for you and be willing to invest and just know, we've talked about it before, consistency is kind of the key. So just know that you are worth investing in. There are different things that will work, that won't work, and it might just take some time. Obviously, feel free to like DM us on Instagram. If you don't follow us, do it. Comment, whatever. We try to respond. The end of my piece.
Smash that like button, comment, subscribe, share. Peace out. Holla at your boy.
Thanks, guys.
We love you. Make a heart, Keith. There we go.
Thumbnail right there.
Honestly.
I'm the greatest podcast guest you guys have ever had.
Say it again.
I'm the greatest podcast guest you guys have ever
Top
had.
3.
Who are the others?
Dylan and Tyler. All right. Well, we caught him in probably not 4K, but the camera is rolling.
We're definitely recording.
That's why that
it's
time
this
was
one right
so-
here. Officer. Got him.
Wait, you're gonna cut this part out, right?
Oh, I'm not including this. Yeah.
Or should I sit?
Comfortably. Just
I don't know
flexing.
what to do with my hand.
I'll talk like this.
You or me?
I can do it.
Smile.
Should I look at the camera?
Smile, but you
Should
don't
I
want to just be like.
touch you? Like it's right here with it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Podcasting is great.
Podcasting's fun.